What? No interpreter is available? No way. Lily's voice was high, as if in shock. She lowered it quickly, but her nervousness was obvious. They failed to bring the interpreter that was expected of them. Were those two responsible for this? They're most likely canceling the arrangement since they don't have an interpreter. I can do the interpretation if you're in a hurry. I can communicate in English rather well. Before I realized it, I had actually stated that aloud. I'm Ryan, and I'm 31. I drive a cab for a living. In addition, I have the background of a mathematician who previously graduated first in my class from Harvard. I now simply like taking solitary drives around Tokyo's streets. I no longer appreciate the elegance of mathematics and its exact logic, and now I spend my time in my car listening to a variety of people's tales. It's what my life has become like. The bustling cityscape is bathed in a pale golden tone as the evening's gentle light bounces off the building windows. The taxi is a peaceful place in the middle of this city's activity. Good night, Ryan. Today, we get together once more. Lily Bennett, my regular, entered through the open door. She rides in my taxi nearly every day and is the young CEO of a startup. Every time she enters my taxi, I eagerly await her story of the day. Lily, good evening. You put in a lot of effort today as well. I'm really exhausted. Sounds like work's been tough. Lily sank far back in the chair. She has brown hair that is wavy, a tall stature, and serious eyes. She came across as a little frightening at first, but recently she has been displaying a more laid-back side. Work is tough, but I also get invited to dinner by clients quite often. Well, you're a beautiful woman, Lily. Avoid making fun of me. Rejecting them each time is tiresome. I looked in the rearview mirror at her. She appeared to be exhausted. I laughed and switched on the music system, knowing it would be foolish to tease her any further. The atmosphere became calmer as soft jazz tunes started to permeate the car. I'll play some relaxing music for you tonight. Yeah, thanks. With a heavy sigh, she leaned back in her chair. I thought the calming jazz might at least somewhat relieve her weariness. She listened to the music in silence for a long time. Then she spoke, as though she had just had an idea. Come to think of it, Ryan, it's rare for someone young like you to be a taxi driver. A little different from normal, there was a tinge of curiosity in her voice. The majority of cab drivers are elderly, it's true. What made you choose to work as a cab driver? Because I'm a vehicle enthusiast, and perhaps to visit you, Lily. You're such a smooth talker. She laughed, assuming I was kidding. In the back of my mind, there was another reason. A past I didn't want to think about in private. I'm really tired. Lily gave a beautiful little yawn. I am going to sleep. When we reach to my house, is it possible for you to wake me up? Got it. She was already sound asleep when I agreed. She must have been quite tired, yet I couldn't help but smile at her carelessness. I fled, but she's likely going through a lot of hardships. Once more, the taxi vanished into the night as her gentle breathing blended with the jazz. In the midst of the car's silence, a far-off memory arose. I remembered every minute of my time at Harvard, delving deeply into the field of mathematics, spending many evenings working through difficulties under artificial lighting, getting lost in a sea of equations, and fervently pursuing novel theories. My research's success gave me a lot of confidence, and one day I turned in a paper that had the potential to make a big difference. But the paper was turned down. The rationale was clear. George had to be the culprit. George sabotaged me with the help of his influential sponsors. I never thought that such dishonest methods could overcome my genuine love of maths. I was so shocked at the time that I went to Professor Cooper to voice my disapproval. What caused the rejection of my paper? The information should be accurate. My voice faltered, my words laced with incredulity. Ryan, sometimes in academia, being right isn't enough. Professor Cooper let out a long sigh and gave me a sad look. I saw a surrender to an inevitable reality in those eyes. Then why did I fall in love with mathematics? My voice became rougher and rougher. I was overcome with a feeling of disappointment and rage that I was unable to control. Professor Cooper said, "Ryan, I understand your passion, but reality is harsh," in a gentle, childlike voice. George is supported by strong sponsors. We cannot disregard their desires. Even though he spoke calmly, it simply made me more irritated. Is that the purpose of the academic community? Putting money and power before morality. My shoulders trembled with annoyance. You still have a way to go, Ryan. I want you to not give up and to keep looking forward. His statements were both reassuring and an unassailable conclusion. I left the institute after being cruelly made aware of my helplessness. I can still hear George sneering as he watched me, the loser. His sarcastic gaze and icy tone grabbed me. "Your passion is useless," he said. I gave up battling, my spirit crushed, and went back to Japan. I decided to live a tranquil life because my old passion had diminished. I now spend my days taking in the passing scenery outside the car window and listening to people's stories. I murmured gently along with the jazz music in the car's silence. I looked at her serene sleeping face while I waited at a red light. The cab drove easily, and soon we reached Lily's house, a lavish high-rise condominium rising in front of us. It was like entering a different universe with its brilliant exterior. "Lily, we're here." My voice caused Lily, who had been sleeping well, to awaken. After a moment of looking about, she slowly regained consciousness and grinned. "Oh, Ryan, thank you. My sleep was excellent." "I'm happy to hear that. You appeared very worn out today." "Yes, I have a significant event approaching. The pressure is very high." Lily unbuckled her seatbelt and gave a little yawn. She stretched like a kitten when she opened the taxi door. She looked like a scene from a movie, lit up by the lights from the high-rise building. Just as I was ready to leave, Lily turned around. "Ryan, thanks again for today." "I didn't do anything." "That is untrue. You are my pillar of support." "Ha, that's a bit of an exaggeration." "No, it's not." Like a teacher describing something, she placed her hands on her hips. "Even when things get tough, I think about talking to you, and it helps me hold back." "I understand." "Well, it's probably beneficial for both of us to vent to me." "Is it truly beneficial to you as well?" "The only person who feels better after is me. Seeing you smile makes me feel better. Typically, my passengers have serious expressions." "Hot. In that case, it's definitely a win-win." She smiled somewhat mischievously as she ran her finger along the taxi door. "Would you like to stay up for a while?" "Only for a short time. I managed to obtain some excellent tea leaves." I was momentarily taken aback by her playful invitation. Her charming smile blended with the quietness of the night. For a second, something inside me wavered, but I quickly regained my composure. "Thanks, but I still have work. Maybe next time if there's a chance." "That's too bad, but see you later." She waved lightly and headed toward the entrance of the condo. I watched from inside the car as the luxurious lobby lights enveloped her, and her figure slowly disappeared into the distance. Lily was bathed in the dazzling lights, a stark contrast to the stillness left behind when the jazz music stopped. We quite literally lived in different worlds. It's not about income, of course. That luxurious life of hers is the result of her facing challenges head-on without running away. I, who had simply tucked my tail and fled, even hesitated to show her my smile. With Lily's warmth fading away, the silence settled in once again. I took a deep breath and moved the taxi to pick up the next passenger. The city remained as noisy as ever, but my own story was still at a standstill. Without much purpose, I continued to drive the taxi. The next afternoon, the taxi was back in the midst of the hustle and bustle. Through the window, I saw people briskly going about their daily routines. I circled the outskirts of the busy world when suddenly a passenger hailed me while I was waiting at a red light. Two men flagged down the taxi and got in. One was tall, and the other was thin. Both of them looked like they were from overseas. They were dressed in business suits and seemed to be in a hurry. Where to? To MW Corporation. Hurry up. We're in a rush. Understood. I'll get there as quickly as I can. Annoyed by their rudeness, I responded calmly as I started the engine and drove off. They began talking to each other. Their voices were annoyingly loud, so I couldn't help but overhear their conversation. They were speaking in English, probably thinking I didn't understand them. What are we going to do about the deal with MW Corporation, that lady CEO's company? Huh. Well, if we cause a little disruption, the deal will be off. I see. So that's how we'll get some pocket money. Exactly. It's an easy job. But what is he thinking wanting to see the business expansion in Japan fail? Apparently, one of his old rivals might be in Japan. A rival? Yeah, so our boss is worried that if he moves into Japan seriously, he might draw the attention of that rival. He wants to keep the sponsorship deals to himself. Huh, what a small-minded guy. They shrugged their shoulders exaggeratedly and laughed, but to me, it wasn't a laughing matter. I had a bad feeling after hearing their conversation. MW Corporation is Lily's company. If that's the case, then the big deal Lily mentioned is likely their target. I bet they're scrambling over their clueless. It's almost comical to watch. Absolutely, teaching that young woman the harshness of business will be quite entertaining. Anger welled up inside me, but I held it back. Saying anything now would be pointless. We're here. Took you long enough. What a slowpoke. Our time is expensive, you know. When we arrived at MW Corporation, the two men got out, complaining the whole time. I kept a plastered smile on my face as I saw them off. As they disappeared from view, I received a message on my phone. It was from Lily, asking for a ride due to the upcoming deal. Sorry for the sudden call. No worries. Thank you for choosing me. Responding to her request, I quickly went to pick her up. Lily got into the taxi, looking exhausted. Where to? To the office, please. I have an important deal. I see, so the deal is happening today after all. The concern that those two men might cause trouble for Lily still loomed. However, there was also a chance it was unrelated. I couldn't just tell her what I'd overheard, so I decided to bring it up subtly. By the way, how's the preparation for the deal going? The deal? Everything should be ready. Lily looked out the window of the moving car. After a moment of thought, she began making a phone call. It's an important deal, so it can't hurt to double-check. Right. That's true. Better safe than sorry. If there was no issue, that would be the best outcome. But my hopeful assumption was quickly shattered. What? There's no interpreter? No way. Lily seemed so shocked that she raised her voice. She quickly lowered it, but it was clear she was flustered. They were supposed to provide the interpreter, but they didn't bring one. Was this the work of those two men? They're claiming it was our communication error. How could this happen? Those men probably spoke Japanese as well, using the lack of an interpreter as an excuse to cancel the deal. If you're in trouble, I can interpret for you. I speak English fluently. Before I knew it, those words had already left my mouth. What? Really, you Ryan? But don't worry about my English skills. I have a lot of foreign passengers. In that case, could you? It would be such a help. Leave it to me. Lily let out a sigh of relief. She must have been quite anxious. I had casually offered my help, but it was too late to regret it now. More than that, seeing Lily so relieved, there was no way I could back out. After arriving at the company, I parked the taxi in the lot and followed her inside. Usually, I just drop her off, so walking with her felt refreshingly new. She looked tense, but there was a hint of relief on her face compared to before. Don't worry, Lily. I'll support you with everything I've got. Thank you, Ryan. You're really a lifesaver. I had already skimmed through the documents for the meeting earlier. When we entered the MW Corporation conference room, the two men from the taxi were already seated and waiting. The tall man and the thin man gave us a look of disdain as soon as they saw us. So, you're the interpreter. Yes, I look forward to working with you today. Hemph. A taxi driver as an interpreter. That's amusing, they sneered. But I remained calm. With just a brief introduction, the meeting began. Pleased to meet you. Likewise. Lily could speak English to some extent, but she wasn't fluent. In an ordinary business meeting, it might have been enough, but not this time. I would have to step in and handle this. We believe the proposal is necessary for market expansion. However, we need to verify some conditions. Given the current financial situation, we need to be more cautious about the investment and need a guarantee that MW Corporation can meet these demands without compromising quality. They were speaking quickly on purpose, mixing and confusing jargon. They even started speaking almost simultaneously, clearly trying to create confusion. They want to confirm the terms necessary for market expansion and verify the conditions. I translated everything for Lily immediately. They specifically need assurance that the demands can be met without compromising quality, considering the current financial situation. I see. We have already taken measures for that. Let's present the specific numbers and plans. I translated Lily's words into English and handed over the documents to the men. The tall man and the thin man looked slightly surprised, but they quickly resumed their attempts to cause trouble. What about the potential risks of the new technology? We have serious concerns about compatibility and potential downtime. Don't forget the legal implications. There are hurdles to clear, and significant delays could occur. As they began speaking over each other again, I listened calmly. But as they kept piling on, I realized translating everything as they spoke would be impossible. We've compiled our approach to the potential risks and legal issues in this document, I said, handing them the document Lily had already prepared. Then, in a low voice, I added, if you're here to sabotage this deal, then speaking to you sincerely is meaningless. Huh? What are you talking about? How rude. Doing business with someone who says things like that. If you're here to cause trouble, would you like me to call your boss? Why, it seems I need to explain everything about you to him. Well, the two of them went pale, exchanging nervous glances. From what I'd overheard, they were being paid to sabotage the deal. To their boss, this would be a serious betrayal. If they were lucky, they'd only get fired, and it was likely their misconduct didn't end with just this incident. Of course, I didn't know the full extent of their actions, but they didn't know what I did or didn't know. They would surely misunderstand, thinking I knew more than I actually did, and that fear would work in my favor. Very well, your involvement is sufficient. Let's proceed with the partnership under the agreed conditions. Indeed, we look forward to a cooperative relationship. In a panic, they quickly changed their attitude and suddenly accepted the contract. Lily had been watching our exchange with a puzzled expression. When she realized the contract had been secured, her face lit up with a radiant smile. So the deal is done. Yes, it's done. Thank you so much, Ryan. This negotiation was a success thanks to you. I simply smiled. A sense of satisfaction from battling in the business world, a feeling I had long forgotten, swelled in my chest. As the meeting ended, the two men left, but not before making a bitter remark. Honestly, your interpreting was impressive. Handling that situation so skillfully. Why were you pretending to be a taxi driver? Thank you, but I'm not pretending. I bowed to them politely. In any case, the success of this negotiation was a significant step forward for Lily. After the two men left the company, she repeatedly expressed her gratitude. Ryan, thank you so much. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there. No, it was your preparation and skill that made this a success. I just helped out a bit. That's not true. Can I rely on you again in the future? As long as it's within my capabilities. Isn't there anything you can't do? Lily said this with a smile full of trust. Seeing that smile, I awkwardly smiled back. As we drove toward her home, she suddenly made a suggestion. How about we take a little drive? It feels like a waste to just go straight home. Should I stop the meter? No need. This is my little indulgence. That's generous of you. Anywhere in particular you'd like to go? Not really. I just want to talk for a bit. I nodded and smoothly drove through the night city. For a while, we were both silent, simply taking in the city lights, until Lily finally spoke. Ryan, what's in the depths of your heart? For a moment, her question left me speechless. That's. I was about to deflect as usual, but then I met her earnest gaze in the rearview mirror. She was looking at me, trying to understand and believe in me. I didn't want to say anything pointless and end up being looked down upon. It's not a very interesting story, but is that okay? I'd love to hear it, she smiled, looking relieved. After taking a few seconds to steel myself, I began to speak slowly. Believe it or not, I graduated at the top of my class from Harvard as a mathematician. Really? You were that incredible. But the paper that I poured my life into was sabotaged by my rival, George. Even now, thinking back to that time is painful. My spirit was broken, and I lost the motivation to continue my research. That's terrible. I had no idea you had such a past. Since then, I distanced myself from the world of research, and now I'm a taxi driver, Ryan. Ha ha. But you know, I wouldn't have met you if I weren't a taxi driver, Ryan said. Lily remained silent for a while, but eventually spoke with a resolute voice. Ryan, this George, is he the mathematician coming to Japan soon? I'm not really up on the news, but it wouldn't be surprising if he did, Ryan replied. I see. The parent company of the one we dealt with today is one of George's sponsors. Then it seems almost certain, Lily said. But honestly, it doesn't bother me anymore. I'm having fun driving. Just go ahead and do business with George's sponsor without worrying, Ryan reassured her. It wouldn't make sense for the deal to fall through on my account, especially after such a big success. Her battles are still ongoing. Worrying about my fight, which had already ended, would be pointless. I can't forgive him for what he did to you. I want to see you use your talent again, Lily said firmly. Just hearing you say that means a lot to me. If I made any move, George would surely take action that could end up causing trouble for the institute where I once worked. I couldn't see the point of taking such a risk just to return, Ryan admitted. Thank you, Lily. Just knowing there's someone who wants me to come back is enough to make me happy. Don't say something so sad. The taxi continued to drive silently through the night, carrying the hollow sound of nothingness. Even after dropping her off at her home, I couldn't manage a proper conversation with her. And after that day, Lily stopped using my taxi. I missed her absence, but I eventually got used to it. That day, too, was just part of the usual routine, and I went about my work as usual. Attention to the taxis on standby at the station. There's a passenger waiting in front of the city hotel, the radio announced. I was about to go looking for a fare when the message came through. Following the instructions, I headed straight to the city hotel. When I arrived, 2 men in suits approached the taxi. One was an older man, and the other was a blond man wearing a hat. To the station, please, the blond man requested. Understood, I said, letting them in and starting to drive. A few minutes of silence passed before the blond man suddenly removed his hat. You look familiar, the blond man said. At the sound of that voice, my heart nearly stopped for a moment. I glanced at the rearview mirror, and indeed, it was a face I recognized. George. George's eyes widened in shock as he recognized me as well. Ryan, what are you doing here? You know each other? The older man asked. George replied with a cynical smirk. Yeah, an old colleague. A man who ran away from the world of mathematics. I kept my composure, but inside, I was fighting a wave of irritation. Whose fault do you think that was? Oh, right. Yeah, you lost to me, George taunted. I didn't lose. Mathematics lost to money. You think you're the guardian of the mathematical world? How arrogant, I shot back. There's more hope in that than in your delusion of still being a true mathematician, George sneered. What did you say? George clicked his tongue in annoyance. I continue to research, even while appearing on TV. But what about you? What are you doing now in this taxi? I'm always solving math problems in my mind. I might even crack an unsolved problem, I replied. Ha, that's just sour grapes. Is that so? It's actually a rather quiet and conducive environment. George sneered, but the older man seemed intrigued. So, you both are mathematicians, I see. Spencer, Ryan can hardly be called a mathematician anymore, George said dismissively. Why the rush, George? Spencer asked. Just a little curiosity, that's all. I'm not rushing, George muttered, looking out the window with discontent. Spencer, if memory serves, he was George's sponsor. By the way, what's your favorite number? Spencer asked suddenly. The question took both of us by surprise. George was quick to answer, 407. It's a 3-digit narcissistic number, absolutely beautiful. Interesting. And it's also my birthday, April 7th, a number destined for me. Ah, I see. Spencer pondered this for a moment. And you, Ryan? Let's see. I thought for a moment before responding lightly. The number on this taxi's license plate is my favorite. George scoffed at my answer. What a boring answer, to love the random numbers on a license plate. However, Spencer smiled. 1729, if I recall correctly. It's famous as the Hardy Ramanujan number, the taxi cab number. What? George said, shocked. As expected of a worldly successful man, you notice even the small details. Ha ha! I'd admire your sense and the foresight to set things up beforehand, Spencer complimented. George's face stiffened, as if sensing something was off. George, I'm afraid I'll have to withdraw my sponsorship. Your answer lacks a certain flair. Wait, you're joking, right? George stammered. If you think it's a joke, then you lack the sense to laugh. No. Well, don't make me repeat myself. This is goodbye. I pulled the taxi over to the side of the road and opened George's door. He looked like he had more to say, but eventually gave up and got out of the car. He knew better than to anger someone as influential as Spencer. Well then, enjoy your time in Japan, I said. George wore a mixture of shock and anger on his face, but he left without another word. As I started the car again, Spencer gave a quiet smile. Ryan, I'd like to have a word with you. What is it? I've decided to partner with MW Corporation, and President Bennett strongly advocated for you. What? Lily? For me? I asked, astonished. Spencer nodded and continued. She believed in both your talent and your character. For a moment, I was at a loss for words. I hadn't realized Lily had been working so hard on my behalf. Lily is a remarkable person. I'm confident that her judgment is sound. Yes, she truly is an amazing person, and I understand you now. Ryan, I believe you will be a valuable asset to our project. My heart swelled with gratitude. Honestly, I was surprised, but if Lily had that much faith in me, I wanted to live up to her trust. Spencer nodded, looking satisfied. Then let's arrange a formal meeting soon with Lily included. I look forward to it. The taxi continued to glide quietly toward its destination. Inside me, a mix of anticipation and anxiety for this new challenge swirled. I felt like my story was beginning to move forward again as I took this new step. Where shall I take you? To my place, please. Driving through the night city, I could feel a sense of renewal. Ryan, thank you so much. Thanks to you, the project is moving along smoothly. Not at all. You're the one who convinced Spencer to come on board. Without your skill, knowledge, and insight, we wouldn't have made it this far. That's a fact. Haha, thank you. Through the rearview mirror, I caught her gentle gaze. But you are quite the gentleman, quitting as a taxi driver to become my personal chauffeur. The pay is better this way, I teased. Ryan, you don't have to worry about the driving. You can focus on mathematics. Thank you, Lily. It means a lot to hear you say that. I suddenly thought of something and decided to ask. By the way, what happened to George? Recently, he lost his backing. His status and reputation have been crumbling. People have realized he lacks real ability. I see. If he had sincerely continued his research, things might have turned out differently. The fact that he had to sabotage you showed his true colors from the start. After that, Lily fell silent, gazing out at the night scenery. Eventually, we arrived at her high-rise, and she spoke up suddenly. Ryan, I have something to talk about. Will you come up? All right. I followed her example and went into her flat via the elevator. From the large living room, we could see the night sky in all its beauty. With a slightly anxious expression, Lily gestured for me to take a seat on the couch. Ryan, there's actually something I'd like to ask of you. What is it? Would you go to America with me? America? Yes. Over there, we are collaborating with a research institute on a project. I truly need your assistance. I was surprised for a second, but then I grinned. If it's something you need, I'd be more than happy to help. Really? Ryan, thank you. I'm your driver after all. You're being mean. Speaking in a slightly sulky tone, she flushed. Not only as a mathematician, but also as a driver. You are what I need. Just you.